They wheeled her into the hall like a burden no one wanted to claim, whispers slicing through the air sharper than knives. Who would marry a paralyzed bride? But no one noticed the single father standing at the back, gripping a small boy's hand, about to make a choice that would shatter shame, silence a crowd, and change 3 broken lives forever. The wedding hall was dressed in white, but there was nothing pure about the way people stared. Soft lights glowed above silk drapes, yet the air felt cold, heavy with judgment. Aisha sat quietly in her wheelchair at the center of it all, her hands folded in her lap, her bridal dress flowing over legs that had not moved in 3 years. Her face was calm, but inside, her heart was trembling. Once, she had danced barefoot in her parents' courtyard, laughing at nothing. Once, she had dreamed of love like any other girl. Then came the accident. A speeding bus. A shattered spine. A future rewritten in pain and silence. When she survived, the doctors called it a miracle. When she couldn't walk again, society called it a curse. Her fiancé's family had agreed to the engagement before the accident. After it, their visits slowed, their smiles faded, and their words became carefully chosen lies. On the morning of the wedding, they arrived late, and not all of them came. The groom never showed up. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Chairs scraped. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else whispered that this was expected. Aisha's mother stood frozen, her eyes scanning the entrance again and again as if her will alone could pull him through the doors. Her father clenched his jaw, pride bleeding quietly into humiliation. Then his family stood up. The groom's uncle cleared his throat loudly. He didn't look at Aisha when he spoke. "We are sorry," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "This marriage cannot happen. Our son deserves a complete life." The word complete echoed like a slap. Aisha felt something inside her break, not loudly, not dramatically, but in the quiet way things truly die. She had prepared herself for rejection, but hope is stubborn. It survives where it shouldn't. And now it was bleeding out in front of everyone. Some guests avoided her eyes. Others stared openly. A few shook their heads, as if watching a tragedy they had predicted. Aisha lowered her gaze, focusing on the intricate embroidery of her dress. She told herself not to cry. Not here. Not now. She had lost the use of her legs, not her dignity. Or so she believed. At the back of the hall stood Omar, a man most people didn't notice. He was there only because his neighbor had begged him to come along. He wasn't dressed like the others, no expensive suit, no polished confidence. He wore a simple jacket, worn at the edges, and beside him stood his 6-year-old son, Adam, clutching a small toy car. Omar knew rejection well. His wife had died giving birth to Adam, leaving him with grief and a child to raise alone. He worked 2 jobs, slept little, and carried guilt like a second spine. He had learned how cruel the world could be to those who were already hurting. Adam tugged at his hand. "Papa," he whispered, "why is everyone being mean to that princess?" Omar looked at Aisha again. The way she sat so still. The way her eyes glistened but never spilled. The way she held herself together while the room quietly tore her apart. Something shifted inside him. The groom's family began to leave, their decision final. The hall buzzed with awkward movement, people unsure whether to stay or go, as if dignity were something contagious. Aisha's father stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Please," he said, not to them, but to the room. "She is still my daughter. She is still worthy." But worth, in that moment, seemed to have conditions. Omar felt his heart pound. He looked at Adam again, then back at Aisha. He thought of his wife's last words, "Teach our son kindness, even when it costs you everything." And then, before fear could stop him, Omar took a step forward. Just when the bride's heart surrendered to silence, a stranger walked through the shame, held her trembling hand, and made a promise that stunned a room full of doubters, and healed wounds no one could see. The sound of Omar's footsteps cut through the murmurs. Heads turned. Confusion spread. No one recognized him. He wasn't family. He wasn't important, at least not by their standards. He stopped beside Aisha. Her mother gasped softly. Aisha looked up, startled, meeting the eyes of a man she had never seen before. There was no pity in them. Only resolve. "I don't know you," Omar said, his voice steady but quiet, "and you don't know me. But I know this: what just happened was wrong." The hall fell silent. "I am a widower," he continued. "I have a son who needs a mother. And I am a man who believes that a person's worth is not measured by what they've lost." Adam stepped forward, clutching Omar's hand tighter. He looked at Aisha and smiled shyly. I like you, he said simply. Aisha's breath caught. Her eyes burned. Omar turned to her parents. If you will allow it, he said, swallowing hard, I would be honored to marry your daughter. Not out of charity. Out of respect. A moment passed. Then another. Some people laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others stared, waiting for someone to stop him. But no one did. Aisha felt the walls she had built around her heart crack. Fear rushed in. Hope followed. Dangerous, beautiful hope. You don't know what you're offering, she whispered. My life is complicated. Omar met her gaze. So is mine. Her father's eyes filled with tears he had refused to shed all day. Her mother covered her mouth, sobbing openly now, not from shame, but from relief. The marriage didn't happen that day. It didn't need to. What happened was bigger. Over the weeks that followed, Omar returned. Again and again. He brought Adam. They talked. They laughed awkwardly at first. Omar learned how to help Aisha without making her feel small. Aisha learned how to let someone in without apologizing for her body. People talked. They always did. They said Omar was desperate. That Aisha was lucky. That the boy deserved better, but inside that small, imperfect family, something extraordinary grew. Aisha became more than her injury. She became Adam's storyteller, his teacher, his safe place. Omar became more than a survivor. He became a partner again, learning that love doesn't replace loss, it grows beside it. On their wedding day, there was no grand hall. Just close friends, quiet vows, and a promise spoken from the soul. I can't walk beside you, Aisha said softly, but I will stand with you in every way that matters. Omar knelt before her wheelchair, his voice breaking. I don't need you to walk, he said. I need you to stay. When Adam placed the ring in his father's hand, the room cried openly. The same people who once whispered now watched in silence, confronted by a truth they had tried to ignore. Love is not about perfection. It is about presence. Aisha never walked again. But she moved hearts. Omar never became rich. But he became whole, and Adam grew up knowing that the bravest thing a person can do is choose love when the world tells them not to.